Hello, I am Dr. Randall. Welcome to Core IQ, where we're going to talk about cool stuff, life skills we all need. Now, in these episodes, we invite people in from all different perspectives, all kinds of areas to talk about these skills we all need, that I need, you need, everybody needs. And today we're going to talk about one of the most important, if not the singular most important, and that is daily quiet time. And to do that, we have my buddy, Danny Ray. Danny I met at the Magic Castle. And for anybody that knows, the Magic Castle, it's a club up in Hollywood. And it's where the very best magicians in the world go. And we as a team, about 20 of us or 25 of us went to a holiday Christmas event, dinner. And one of the performers was Danny Ray. And I've been going to this club since the 1980s or early 1990s. I've seen hundreds of magicians. Danny was, I've thought about it, you're probably number one. There were two or three that would give you a little well, not competition, but you'd be in the same league. But Danny was so good. First, he had me baffled on how you did this stuff, and it's still kind of haunting me. But secondly, the performance, the skill was great. And then we got to know each other and found out Danny's a Christian pastor. He's got a background with working with kids. And I thought, hey, let's talk about some really important stuff. So, yeah. Danny, welcome. Glad you're here.
Thank you for having me. Looking forward to it.
Yeah. So we're going to talk about daily quiet time.
Yes.
Now, this is crazy. I got to tell you a quick story.
Yeah.
The first time I really became aware of daily quiet time was when I did volunteer work. And the first time I ever got grounded, or they call it meditation, whatever you want to call it, was in San Quentin prison. About a year ago, I was doing some volunteer work. It was crazy.
Volunteer, you weren't in prison.
Not this time. But I was in San Quentin prison, first time I ever did that.
Yeah.
And what's crazy, I have a cardiologist, and you know what she prescribed about 2 weeks ago was meditation to bring your blood pressure down.
Yeah.
So this is really important stuff, not just from the perspective of turning lives around, which is the prison work, but also my medical doctor is telling me the same thing.
Right.
You're kind of an expert on this, so let's go through these issues, and what do you think about all this?
It definitely just recalibrates your day every day, starting fresh with just meditation, time alone.
Yeah.
For those in, faith, regardless of your faith, is focusing on God and what He has for you for that day.
Yeah.
And so 17 years old, I became a follower of Christ, and at 17 years old, I started to get up early. It's kind of crazy, but I read a verse that talked about, that Jesus got up early. Mm-hmm. So I started getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning, and I got up at 4 o'clock this morning. I still do it 30 years later. And
that's awesome.
Yeah, and it's not every day, my schedule gets crazy on the weekends, and there's times where I can't do that. But in terms of a habit and a practice, I try to get up early before kids are up, before craziness, and just process, think through. The day gets crazy. You hear about the news, you hear about wars, you hear about school shootings, and all the blood pressure, that begins to rise.
Right.
And if that's the first thing you're hearing in the morning, that's going to affect the rest of your day. It's kind of like, where people talk about a diet or having exercise in the morning, or the first meal you have, how that sets the tone for the day. Yeah. Well, if you're still and you meditate, that's going to affect. It's not like every day is going to be perfect because you meditated, but it's going to transform your days over the course of time.
You're exactly right. And not only is that kind of your experience, medically that's proven.
Yeah.
And my cardiologist, I had a blood pressure thing on. I was looking at my blood pressure. It was sky high. I meditated like she told me to. She literally taught me how to meditate.
Yeah.
And my blood pressure went down to about a 12-year-old's. It went way down to completely normal levels just by this process we're going to talk about. So good stuff. So the first one is listening to music. What do you think about that as far as part of this daily quiet time?
Yeah, early on in my quiet times, I almost always listen to music and things that were empowering and encouraging and helped me to those would almost would become prayer-like.
Yeah.
That music became like, this resonates with the story with where I'm at.
Yeah.
So I'm definitely a fan of music, and I've done the other, those were music with the lyrics in it. I've also done the other side where it's just music that's just more settling and peaceful.
Yeah.
Currently, I just find silence to be so powerful, and enjoy more of just being still than you trying to find the right music. And I feel like we always have music going on in our lives now, or at least I'll say in my life. There's music is often part of the background noise,
Right.
and so I think it could be a very effective strategy for a lot of people, and I've found it very effective. It could like you talked about with lowering your blood pressure, is it brings a peace and a calm. The right music can get you set the tone for the day.
Yeah. One of the guests we had in Core IQ is Mrs. Leo Fender. Leo Fender invented the electric guitar, and that made me kind of research a little bit about the effects of music.
Right.
And you can actually change a mood. The research varies from 2 to 7 minutes, but very quickly you can go from one to another. So, I happen to love Led Zeppelin, but I don't want to listen to Led Zeppelin in the morning because it gets my blood pressure high. Maybe another time. But in the morning, that quiet music can be really kind of bring you down.
For sure.
Yeah. Okay. And then we're talking about daily quiet time. Meditate or pray. We're going to actually have an episode on meditation because this is like a new thing to me. And in prison, they call it grounding. It's the same thing, but the word meditation, some people aren't comfortable because they think it's religious or a different religion or something. It doesn't. It is what it is. It's great stuff, whatever you call it.
Right.
But I mean, meditation basically is just kind of, instead of thinking about the future or the past, you're thinking about now.
Right.
You're thinking about where you are right now, and that has a very calming, settling thing.
Yeah, thinking about the past can be nerve-wracking of like what's happened yesterday, what's happened a month ago, a year ago, and how those are affecting the present and the future. Could get very tense. Yeah. This is my challenge for people that I give to them all the time when they're considering like taking time to carve out time to pray, to meditate.
Right.
Is to take 7 minutes. I think sometimes we overthink it. We want to do something huge.
Right.
And it's just not practical. But taking 7 minutes, that time will grow over time. It's kind of like in your book.
May we do be.
In that, where you give the push-up challenge, it's just one push-up, and how that led to more and more, is similar things. It's with 7 minutes, you'll find first day, like that might seem like forever, but after doing 7 minutes for a month, you're going to look and go, oh, I've been here for 30 minutes. That grows, and you grow in your desire to be still and to meditate.
I love that. And it's funny you say the 7 minute, because my cardiologist, again, she's an MD, she said 10 minutes. So about the same thing. In other words, you don't have to become, a Buddhist monk and go to the Himalayas for a year or two.
Right.
7 minutes, 10 minutes a day.
Yeah.
And then she also prescribes 10 minutes of getting your heart rate up. But that's kind of a different thing.
Led Zeppelin.
Well, but
get your heart rate.
She wants me running, so I've been doing that, and then that leads us to hiking and exercise. That can be, a lot of people really connect to nature to kind of bring the blood pressure down too. I don't know. Does that work for you?
Yeah, no. I just went on at least 2 hikes this week, and we have the super blooms in California that are pretty fantastic, and right by my house.
Right.
It's just more green than it's ever been, and so you get up there, and it's real similar to the meditation, but you're in the middle of this vastness of God's creation that you go, this is magnificent and wonderful, and it brings perspective to your day to realize, not that I want to put people down and say we're nothing, but our smallness helps us to be aware that sometimes we focus so much on our problems which make them seem so big, but when you sit in God's creation, you go, okay, maybe there's something bigger going on here, and I could enjoy that, take it all in, and at the same time, just the hikes, like this hike wasn't far. It was, a mile away from my house, and but just sometimes doing a short hike gets you away from the day-to-day, and you're able to enjoy the very things you have around you that are there 24/7 that we ignore. It's like people live in one city for their whole lives, and sometimes they don't enjoy the city they live in until they move away from it, and then they're like, hey, this is such a great place, and I think a hike can do that like instantly, where you go and you just go, wow, this is great, and gives you a different perspective on life.
I love that. Okay. Then we've got yoga. Now I know what the word. I know there's a word yoga. I know nothing about yoga. Is that something you're into, or is that?
No, I've done yoga before. I have an exercise program that I do. It doesn't include yoga at this point. I've done it off and on.
Yeah.
But I think the key there that yoga kind of does this mix between exercise and meditation,
right,
and kind of mixes those together, which I think is a powerful combination.
Yeah.
I think the key for that is the exercise, which the hiking, the walking, leads into that stuff as well.
One thing I learned, Danny, when I was in San Quentin last week was you need to feel and deal. And so the whole day can be dealing with this, dealing with that, but you also have to feel, and you need both. Right. And so what we're really talking about is whether it's yoga, which I don't know anything about. I'm just learning about meditation, and I love the prayer concept and music, all of that I like personally. Everyone has to find what works for them. But that kind of addresses the feel. Because when you feel and deal, you're productive.
Right.
And if you don't feel or deal, your life is chaos. You gotta kind of do both. The next one is reflection. I mean, that's kind of related to meditation, I think, but what do you think?
Yeah, with reflection so I think you could take any of these, the daily quiet time, the meditation, the hike, and what are you reflecting on? So for somebody of faith, right, there might be an ancient scripture passage that you think about, you reflect on. I know early on, in my walk with God, kind of that faith journey, is in my back pocket, I'd pull out and I'd have a verse that I'm thinking about, reflecting on that day. And, just when you're in line, when you're doing, you sit down to eat, you can pull that out, think about it. I think it's one of those ways of taking that 7 minutes or that quiet time that you start with in the day and bring that into reflection throughout the day.
Yeah, I love that. And about 2 weeks ago, I was invited to a Buddhist monastery, of all places, to attend an Alcoholics Anonymous, an AA meeting, which I'd never been to. And in that group, it's very diverse, and you do have believers and people of faith, and you have also agnostics and atheists. And what they say there is, if you are, for example, an atheist or an agnostic, find something inspirational. Something written that's really poetic to you, and reflect on that. And they're big on respecting that there's a higher power, but they have a pretty broad definition for that to let everybody, feel welcome in that space.
And I think with a simple Google search, you could find inspirational quotes, things that will resonate with who you are. Yeah. And to reflect on those, I think, there's this constant tension between who we want to be and who we are. And I think reflecting on things of who you want to be will help you live into those things.
Yeah, I love that. And when we were at lunch one day, you were talking about reading the scriptures. Yeah. And you said, instead of saying, I'm going to read something inspirational or scriptures or whatever for 20 minutes, just read till you hit something that hits you. And just stop there and focus on that for the rest of the day. And it may be within the first 30 seconds. Right. I remember that. That was a great comment.
Yeah, I think it's one of those practices. Again, I think sometimes this becomes overwhelming, and you'll hear somebody that's mentoring you maybe say, if you read an hour a day, if you did this and it feels like, you always feel less than like, oh, I just can't achieve that. Yeah. So I'm always looking for simple ways, because over time, like if you spent a minute, let's forget 7, if you spent a minute in the morning and in the evening praying, meditating, that's 12 hours over the course of the year.
That's great.
It builds, know, and so I think every time we can, that affects the outcome of our day and eventually our lives.
Well, now I'm kind of getting some insight why you're such a successful, so successful with the kids and mentoring and teaching kids, because you make it doable rather than this thing that just everybody's going to fall short and feel like I can't do this. Your suggestions, work. The other one is reading. We kind of covered that, with reading something inspirational, reading the scriptures, whatever that means to whoever is watching. Anything else about the reading thing that you want to?
Yes, I think reading is a powerful tool in the arsenal of your quiet time. There's times where I won't read the scriptures, where I'll find somebody, maybe a biography, somebody's story that inspires me, and read through that and go, how can I become a better man? Who's God designed me to be? How can I live into those things? And so I think there's all sorts of options that way. Even maybe at somebody's blog, I've done that at times, that I'll read that as a way of meditating, of thinking through what my day looks like.
Yeah, so hopefully everybody sees that this daily quiet thing is, number one, really essential. It doesn't have to take an hour or two. It can be just a few minutes. But it's a really critical life skill that a lot of people skip over. They jump right into the harshness of the day. But this really kind of ripples out. My blood pressure is really gone in half because of these kind of skills, and it doesn't take a lot. Speaking of reading, you wrote a book. You want to tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, it's called Magnificent Mark. It's about how do you live remarkably? How do you make I wrote it specifically for teenagers, even though I've had lots of parents read it and go, wow, I was reading it for my kid, but this is really helpful for me. There's a story in there that kind of bookends not my life. It's not over yet. But my biological father, I dealt with a lot of abandonment issues. He took off when I was about 4 years old.
Okay.
And I ended up reconnecting with him. He was in prison for a number of years for some pretty horrendous things. I talk about that a little bit in the book. And and then I was able to reconcile with him towards the end of his life, and then the funeral. And so it kind of bookends the struggle of abandonment, how I dealt with that, how as a person of faith, learned to forgive and eventually reconcile with him. But ultimately, the book isn't about that as much as about living remarkably and how do we do that in the midst of, difficult lives.
Well, that's a powerful story right there. I'm on it. I know what I'm going to be reading here. So, Danny, thanks for being here. Great tips. Can't wait to read your book. And make sure that you read Danny's book, like and share Core IQ. Let's get the word out. Let's elevate the Core IQ of everyone around us. Thanks.